Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. Today we're going to be talking about cycling through that negative thinking. Have you noticed that when we get into this negative thinking and cycle through it, what we're talking about is that negative leap, right? That negative loop. Everybody knows about the negative loop. I've talked about the negative loop endlessly. Like a Mobius strip. Remember Mobius strips? I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I want to talk about this in how it affects you, your heart, mind, body, and soul, because our beautiful selves, the least nurtured of our bodies and of our whole lives, is that part of us that is really our higher self, the one that is connected with God. It is our intuition. It is our knowing. It is our empathy. It's the beautiful part of us that is so connected with God and also connects with others and also is able to grow and to mature in such a way that gives us our wisdom. That's my belief. That's my belief. Your design and wording came off your mug. I'm going to bet you put it in the dishwasher. You're not supposed to do that, Andrea. Sorry about that. Write in and let's see what we can do about that. So this is one of the main things that I really want to emphasize for you, because if we are going to go to the place of starting to really dump that negative thinking, and not just so that we say, I'm going to think this instead of that, but really get rid of that negative loop, then we've got to start looking at how deep-rooted it is. Because if it's deep-rooted, it is damaging your soul. I believe that. I believe that it leaves an imprint. It keeps us in this place of feeling not enough, right? That we're not enough, that we don't have the stuff that it takes. We are helpless. We are victims, not victors. And I want to take you through this because I believe that there comes a time when we kind of get addicted to these negative cycles. It's the thing that we get addicted. But I did a deeper dive on all of this. And you know what I found? I found that there is some addiction that's there, but there's also the brain is trying to figure out a different ending. Have you ever seen a movie where they have alternative endings? I know they do this, and I have never seen a movie where they say, oh, that was alternative ending number 3 or 4. They get together, they don't, or she moves away, or whatever. They have alternative endings to stories. Well, our brains do this. They want an alternative ending. Didn't like how that one happened. So let's think through it again. Let's suffer through it again. Think the whole scenario through, and maybe we can come up with a different ending. Well, that's what psychologists believe. We all want a better outcome. We all want happy endings. This is one of the reasons why I don't watch action movies. And even though I know that they're going to end up with a happy ending, for me, it's just tough stuff getting there. It's suffering to get there. Puts me on high alert. Cortisol levels are going, bonkers. But we don't need to do this. This attempt to re-script what happened in our lives, it puts us on hold. And so we hold on to this because we're trying to figure it out. And we also hold on to it because we're trying to figure out how to let it go. Isn't that ironic? I think that, but that's how the human brain operates, not necessarily from the place of logic, but from the place of trying to make things work out. It just means everything. It means everything. It means that, we are hopeful that we can work this thing out. We are somehow putting a lot of credence in the fact that if we think through this just a little bit, maybe we'll get to that place where it will finally get worked out. Even though Even though if we were to stand back and say, hey, brain, I got news for you. That happened in the past. But see, remember something about our brains. Our brains do not understand the difference between a vision and the difference between what's actually happening. So if you're emoting and putting a lot of pressure and a lot of emotion and feeling and what have you into retelling this over and over again in your brain, you're reliving it. Your brain doesn't know that it's not happening again. Your brain isn't sitting there going, oh, come on, Leanne, that's not happening again. It's going, okay, here we go again. Remember the story about the pianist? I gave that to you earlier this week. They did brain scans on a pianist, a pianist playing and emoting and just really feeling that piece of music. They did a brain scan on him. And then they did another one of a pianist thinking about playing that same piece and what it would feel like and all of that. You've seen pianists, they really do feel their music. Same exact brain scan. So we don't know the difference, but you and I do. We have to remember that our brains are merely organs in our bodies. If we decide to run the show, then they don't. We get to. Let that land, because this is an important part of this whole equation of getting rid of this negative thinking. It's like, hold up a minute, time out. You don't run the show, I do. Because who you are is heart, mind, body, soul. You're not just a brain. The brain is merely an organ. It does your thinking for you, but you get to manipulate and choose the direction of the thinking because you're heart, mind, body, and soul. Isn't that incredible? I love that. I love that. Lucy just said, let's run our own shows. She's exactly right. Let's run our own shows. Sitting on the couch thinking about my workout probably won't be the same. Maybe in my brain, but not in my booty. That's exactly right. But you want to hear something interesting, Sarah? And they've done so many studies on this that your body will still secrete the same chemicals as if you were working out. Yes, Jane's right. Same with practicing free throws. You can always tell whenever we're watching basketball. Mark and I are watching basketball. Do you know how upset I get when I see somebody miss a free throw? I say they shouldn't be missing that. You know, they should have. And they always tell you your stats on missing these free throws. And when I see somebody who hasn't got a very good stats on free throws, I always think of Michael Jordan. How much time did he spend on those free throws? That's what we need to be doing. And constant practice, and also practicing the emoting, practicing what it all feels like, so that we can come to this place of letting it go. We can come to this place of letting it go when we recognize and understand what everything is all about. We're trying to go for a better outcome. I get it. Don't we all want a better outcome? Don't you hate movies? Or I shouldn't say hate movies, but when you have watched a movie where it doesn't have a good outcome, doesn't that make you sad? It does me. It makes me sad. And then I'm thinking about it all the time. What would it be different? We're no different. This is how that whole thing works. So we hold on to figure it out, and we also hold on to figure out how to let it go. That's why we hold on to these dumb stories. Instead of taking out the experience, putting it into the experience file, and allowing that lesson to teach us the lesson that we need for our lives so that we can move on. That's what we do instead. So I, of course, am going to always encourage you to do that and discard the rest. Because going through and over and over and over again is doing nothing for you. The things that we want on repeat are the good habits that we want in our lives, the good thoughts that we want in our lives, the climb toward excellency, the path toward vibrancy. That's what all this does. And this also, by the way, is one of the reasons why we procrastinate from doing something. It's also one of the reasons why we avoid confrontation, because we don't want that pain anymore. You know, we're trying to avoid the pain. We're trying to re-script it in our the negativity in our heads. We're trying to re-script it. We're trying to figure out a different ending. Well, and it's one of the reasons why this behavior comes around. We want to avoid any kind of pain. That's what procrastination is. It's delayed decisions, of course. And I always say that constipation, if you read Body Clutter, I say constipation is the ultimate body's way of procrastinating. True. But we can get past all of this, totally past all of this, anytime we make a decision that is enough. Seriously, that is enough. And I want to also mention too, that we can hold on to this negative stuff so much so that not only do we not want to let it go, but we become addicted to it. Addicted. There's body chemicals are always coming out, right? And thoughts produce them. The way we move our bodies produce them. I mean, it's really interesting how there's like chemical reaction after chemical reaction happening in our bodies at all times. So if you want to feel good, you know how to feel good, right? Go do some jumping jacks or something. That's going to get the serotonin and the dopamine flying. Yay. Makes you feel good. Endorphins. Go endorphins. That's my team. I'm team endorphin all the way. Let's make it happen. But when we do that, we also can get wrapped up and even past, there is a thing of being past the point of addiction to that becomes your identity. That becomes your identity. This is one of the reasons why, and I'm going to say this is personal. This is my personal opinion. So don't climb down my throat. One of the reasons I like some of AA's stuff, but I don't like this. Hi, my name is Leanne, and I am an addict. I am an alcoholic or whatever. And then everybody says hello. I understand what they're trying to do, but I also don't, why would we want to underscore it and underpin that kind of identity? I think that in and of itself is an ID problem. I really do. That's just my personal opinion, and we're all entitled to them, just like we're all entitled to having belly buttons. Amen. So to give up this negative ruminating means that you're sometimes asking somebody to give up their identity because their identity is so wrapped up in that negative loop. So if this rings true for you, if anybody is going, yikes, you're talking about me, right? If that is the case, there are ways that we can stop this. I mean, it's one thing to break up with negative thoughts, like an abusive boyfriend. We talked about that yesterday. But it's another thing when you're on repeat. When you're on repeat, you think, yeah, no, I'm going to get rid of this. And then, suddenly it's just like, how come this isn't happening? It's not happening because of the addiction. It's not happening because not only are you addicted to that thinking, but that becomes your identity. And I don't want you standing up and saying, hi, I'm Leanne, and I'm addicted to this negative thought loop that I have. No, it doesn't need to be so. We can step into the life that we want to lead by simply declaring it. So by simply declaring it over and over and over again. When you get this negative loop, you have to go to something completely different. And that sounds so cinchy and so easy, but I really do have 5 things. And I'm going to take you through them all. And Jackie said, I'm talking about you. Jackie, honey, I'm going to give you a big hug when I see you because someday I know I'm going to see you. That's number 1. And number 2, I want you to write this stuff down. Okay, here we go. And if you can't, just look at the timestamp right now and come back to this and write this stuff down in your journal. These are your exercises for you. All right. That's because I love you. Here we go. Number 1, we need back to front thinking. Do you know what that means? Understand the anatomy of your brain. Your monkey brain is back here. It's basically a stem, and it just keeps you alive. We have, that's the breathing, that's the heart beating, and that's just all the primitive stuff. We have to have back to front thinking. We know that when we start into this thing, that's the monkey brain going back to the same thing that they know. But remember we talked about knee-jerk thoughts? It's knee-jerk thoughts. But if we say, okay, there's that knee-jerk thought, let's replace it with this instead. And let's also process all of this. When we process, we go from the back all the way to the front. This is the prefrontal cortex. The hippocampus is in here. This is where all the high-minded, intelligent thinking gets done. This is where there's abstract thinking. This is where we can conceive and conceptualize. And if we allow ourselves to process, not in the monkey brain, but here, like, what if something was different? What if I did this instead? What if, oh, this is what's going on? I'm aware now that this is a negativity loop that not only is going on in my life, but one, I'm addicted to it, and two, that's my identity. I don't want that anymore. That awareness of front to back thinking, or back to front thinking rather, is going to help you get to the place of dropping this like a hot potato. But there's more, of course, there's more. Let's go with that. Number 2, see the loop and acknowledge it. Oh, shoot, there it is again. You know, have you ever done this where you're just like, oh no, I'm doing it again, blah, 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 blah. And the whole, even the awareness of it is just as a negative as the negativity. But how about this instead? And I've got some things for you. Oh, I got caught again. There it is again. And laugh at it. Just go, oh, I'm so over this. This is so yesterday. That's so dumb. You know what's good? You know what's great? You know what's wonderful? Dwell on those things. Know a Bible verse that goes with that? Yes, you do. So we can just take that and start to flip it. And the other thing you can say is, look what I'm doing. This is great. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this. And you're kind with yourself. You laugh about it. You write about it, unpack it a little bit and write about it. And then you know what you say? This is your I am statement. I am letting these things go. I am. I am letting these things go. A little bit every day, a little bit more tomorrow, and every single day I'm going to be in the weeds. I am going to take this out. Have you ever had a garden that was just out of control? Were you able to get it under control in a day? No, you went out every single day. You put on your sun hat, you put on your garden gloves, you took your tools with you. Those weeds came out. Here comes the hoe, you know? And then after you take those weeds out, then you got to scoop them up, put them in a wheelbarrow, and take them over to the compost pile. You got to get them out so they don't reseed and take over again. And then you don't just leave the field barren, right? You seed it with stuff you want. This is how our brains are. Exactly how our brains are. And if we understand and recognize that there's different processes in the brain and decide, make a decision. I'm not gonna think from the monkey brain anymore. I'm not a monkey. I'm a smart, wise, intelligent, vibrant woman. That's you. That is you. Acknowledge it, declare it, and keep going. You've got a project ahead of you. But that garden, when you are done taking out all those weeds and reseeding it with all the glorious flowers that you want, will fully bloom under your nurture and care. Promise. Promise. There's some work that needs to be done, but so what? You know, we've got the days. Let's use our days for these things. Then number 3 is ask why in a constructive way, ask in a constructive way. Here's what we do instead. This is it. And let me just say, you're not the only one. I found myself doing this last night. We always do this. Or not always, but sometimes a lot. This. Why me? How constructive is that? How helpful is that? What has it ever given to you? Why me is such a whiny baby thing. Why me? No. All right, let's drop that one. Can we agree? Pinkies up that just sucks the air out of the room, and it just makes you go, oh, come on, absolutely not. We're not going to do that anymore, right? How about this one? What if I let go of this negative loop? What if? And what if with a smile? What if opens the door to possibilities? It is a new key for that new door. Exactly what it is. Got that? Write that one down. This is juicy, good, yummy stuff. So why in a constructive way is going to help you to reframe all of this stuff. And number 4 is to feel it and not think it. I'm going to tell you why. Because so often what happens is we rethink and we think and we think again, trying to re-script it, trying to create a new happy ending, because we're avoiding how we feel. And maybe if you really sat and felt all the feels that go with that whole negative loop, maybe you're going to sit down and cry in the bathtub for a few hours. So what? Let it out. Because sometimes I believe that connection between our minds and our hearts is a little broken. And that connects it together. It's okay to feel. We don't have to live there either. Remember that. Feelings and emotions, they come and they go. But when we avoid them, when we put them off and we push them away, and we don't do any of this work, and it is work, we think that we need to solve it. Sometimes it's just not solvable. We think that if we avoid it, then we don't have to look at it. No, that's not true. You know that. So you can sense how you feel and you can acknowledge it and you can move on. And then you can take some of the steps for number 2 that I talked about, being kind to yourself, maybe laughing, just saying, it's been going on for 40 years. It's ridiculous. I can let go of this. I'm not a tree. I'm not forced to stay here. I can move on, right? And then number 5, you're going to like this for my girls who are, and we have a few lovelies here. One of my favorite things to do. Kitchen's closed. Remember that? That's enough. That's enough. When we do things, use things, put things in our path, we start to change our mind. It's setting up your environment for success. It's also setting up your senses for success. That's enough. I do this with my dog. That's enough. Do it with yourself. Do it with yourself. It's startling. It wakes you up. It sets a new thing. It adds a new thing to the thought process. Let's do this. Can we agree to this? Can we pinky up on this one and say, that's enough? You're worth way more than that, aren't you? Yes, you are. Don't get me started on this. When we do this for the kitchen, we say, kitchen's closed. Right now, what we're doing when we say this, our minds are open. Got it? Our minds are open for the new thing. Let's get those pinkies up. There comes Debbie and Jocelyn. Yes. Lucy, still up. And number 6, this is the last one. What will I lose and what will I gain? If I hold on to this negative loop, this identity that I've made for myself, this addiction that I have to this negative loop, what am I going to lose if I decide to get rid of it? What will I gain if I get rid of it? These are important questions to ask because we don't oftentimes think about our thinking. We talked about that this week as well, didn't we? If we do this, then we have the ability to make a whole different choice and look at the buffet table of decisions. There's a whole bunch of them there. And they're so much better than the negative loop that you've been holding on to, that maybe has become your addiction, your go-to, your story that you tell yourself on why you can opt out of a vibrant life. I'm not going to let you do that. I want you to tell the truth about your identity. You know why? Because you're fearfully and wonderfully made, on purpose, for purpose. So does any of this negative loop, this identity, this addiction, these thoughts, these knee-jerk thoughts that lead to a whole way of life, do they fit? There's a real incongruency there. There's a real incongruency there. And part of this problem is not thinking you're enough and not believing that you are fearfully and wonderfully made and not believing that your heart is held tenderly in the hands of the Father who loves you beyond anything we could even fathom. I love it. Lucy's going to the store was out of arugula, so she's moving on to another fear, the fear of radishes. So we'll pray for you, Lucy. We love you, Lucy. You know that. And I love you guys. all of you, every single one of you lovelies who are here, who show up, who support this small woman business, owned business for 20 years now, who are here because they want to live an excellent, vibrant life. All right. Thank you so much for showing up. And I hope that, I hope this meant something to you. If it did, then share it, for heaven's sakes. And if there's anything that I can ever do for you, you know what to do. Just send in an email to support@savingdata.com. I'm there for you. Peace be with you. Have a fabulous weekend. Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.